Last but not least, on the show tonight, for the first time, joining us, our new NAIA insider. I don't know if we need like a little drum roll or anything, but from the other side of the country, man, out in Oregon, Dakota Wesleyan alum, Matthew Schwaerzler. What's going on, brother? I'm glad to have you join us. Like, I seriously am excited to have you be a part of this.
Yeah, appreciate it. Glad to be on the show, man. I'm really excited about this. It's really cool to put the NAI on notice. I feel like a lot of people just kind of dismiss this level of football. There's a lot of cool stuff to talk about, though. I guess for me, obviously, you hinted at it. I'm a Dakota Wesleyan alum. I played fullback, tight end there for 4 years. Graduated this past May, originally from Tacoma, Washington. Yeah, neck roll and everything. It was
no shit. Are you serious?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got
pictures. I gotta get some flicks of that. That's awesome.
Yeah, neck roll and all. But yeah, spent 4 years there. Absolutely loved it. Graduated, moved out to Portland, Oregon, where I am living my best life and covering NAIA football. On the NAIA F Ball podcast, if anybody in the sphere has seen that, do a show with Corey Thorpe there every Monday. So yeah, good stuff. It's
big time. Like, not new to this. True to it.
Not new to this. Not new to this. I am a big NAIA truther. Been around the block a few times, you know.
Yeah. New to us. Not new to the scene at all, man. But now I'm definitely gonna need some visual confirmation on that neck roll. That's badass.
Yeah, I'll get some too, man. I got some.
When I was coming back, at least trying to come back and be healthy, I was on my equipment manager's ass every day. Like, let me just get one of those, man. He's like, you don't have any neck problems. I'm like, man. I come in the next day. I'm talking to my trainer. I'm like, man, I've been having this stinger on the left. You know what I mean? I've been having this stinger on the left side. It just feels like I need to have my neck immobilized. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But they never gave me one. Alas.
Yeah, I kind of had to work some magic to get it, which involved going into the equipment shed after practice. But you know, we do what we can.
I love it, dude. Oh, dude. But let's talk some matchups as far as this past weekend from the NAIA scene. And we'll also get into our players of the week here in a little bit. But do you want to start with this Friends Southwestern game, dude?
Yeah, so across the board in the NAIA this week, it was not as exciting as weeks past have been. I feel like there's been a lot of chaos in the NAIA this year. But one of the matchups that really stood out was Friends versus Southwestern. Southwestern came into this game ranked 6th in the country, leading the KCAC. They are traditionally a very good football squad. And Friends kind of coming out of nowhere this year. They have a second-year head coach who's really been able to get some things done. And I mean, they're rolling right now. They're 6-1, and they get a big 2-score win over a Southwestern team, running the triple option, no less. This is like a year and a half under this new head coach, and they've been running the triple option really well. And this Friends team is, don't let the name deceive you. They are an absolute powerhouse. They are mean. They are nasty.
I love it.
And they just get it done. And honestly, for some historical context, Friends is usually not very good. This is a team that is on the up and up. Obviously, with the newer head coach, you can kind of expect that they've been down for a little bit. And people expected this Friends team for it to take 2, 3, 4 years to get it rolling. They're not even finished with year 2, and they are already on top of the conference. They are absolutely bullying teams. Their only loss was to, I can't remember, but it was one of the better teams in the NAIA.
Kansas Wesleyan, and they lost by a touchdown.
Yeah, and Kansas Wesleyan is leading their side of the KCAC right now, and traditionally a very good squad, so that's not a bad loss to have at all. Yeah, they just bullied Southwestern. Like, Southwestern played well, all things considered, but man, Friends just not enough. I mean, scoreboard shows it. Both teams did really well on third down, converting most of the time, but Friends was just able to run it down the throat.
Dude, yeah, and you talked about the triple option. You know, it's crazy, too, when you say the coaching staff has only been there for so long, and to go personnel-wise and schematically to make that switch over and to, fully buy into this new scheme. Typically, you don't have the dudes that can just embrace that kind of change. They could have been in a totally different situation there. The guys buy in, but talk about such a change. I don't know what they ran in the past before that, but anything from going to that to a triple option, it just takes a lot of buy-in. And when you have a guy like Kevontae Baker, it makes it a little bit easier. He threw 4 passes on the day for 119 yards. 2 of them were made their way into the end zone, and then he gets it done on the ground, 24 carries for another 122 and 2 tuds. That'd be why he was our player of the week. And also, when you talk about, like you and I had discussed before, the implications of this game to the actual start of conference play over a team that was receiving all those votes in the top 10, it doesn't become more of a statement game for this Falcon squad, man.
Oh, absolutely. And going forward, they have some tough games, but to get a win like this is huge. And you mentioned it, Cavante Baker, man. Holy cow. That dude was pretty much unstoppable this entire game. You get a guy, especially in the triple option, and you mentioned that it takes buy-in. Not only does it take buy-in, but the triple option takes a while to get down.
Yes.
Timing wise, a feel, you got to have the right guys in there, and they're just rolling with it, man. Obviously, Cavante leading the charge there. He's clearly fit for the position.
Yeah.
So he's making it work really well. But and on the other side of the ball, too, this Friends defense is nothing to scoff at, holding a usually pretty solid Southwestern offense. Only 20 points is pretty impressive. So
totally. And on the special team, I mean, it was all facets of the game for them as a complete whole. Cole Thompson, he hit one from 49. Dude, I didn't realize that in the first look through the box score. That is ridiculous. He was 2 for 2 on field goals in the day. The first one, more of a chip shot from 20, but that 49-yarder, I don't know what the conditions were like. I don't care, to be honest with you. That is impressive as hell. And for me, looking at the schedule, I guess, for these guys moving forward, you mentioned the Kansas Wesleyan squad, a quality team. That is their one loss. But as far as the conference play goes, it feels like these next 2 weeks probably going to be the biggest two for these guys. Looking 2 on the road in Missouri and Kansas with, is it Evangel?
Yeah.
Evangel, and then Bethel, 2 squads who I do believe have been putting up some quality games, and then also closing out with Bethany, who I do believe is a quality opponent as well. But shoot me down if I'm off the mark there. I'm still again. I kind of told you when I talked to you. D2, I'm dialed. D3,
yeah,
I'm getting there. NAIA, it's like sometimes it's tough for me, man. I'm getting there though. I'm getting there.
Yeah, the KCAC usually produces some very quality teams. Kansas Wesleyan usually being the main one, but Southwestern, Avila have come out of that conference in years past. But Friends, man, this is just unreal what they are doing and what they've managed to do in less than 2 years' time. I cannot emphasize that enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for a team to jump on the bandwagon, it is this Friends squad. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Those boys love to hear that, dude. They love to hear that over there. I know it. But we can talk about our game of the week selection, that being Marion over Concordia Ann Arbor, a game that had also some really big top 10 implications. Marion coming out on top of this one, 14-7, a freaking defensive battle. The conditions, I do believe it looked windy as shit over there, a lot of rain on the field. This one, just an overall gritty matchup. What'd you see, man?
Yeah, I mean, the weather was not great. These are 2 extremely stout defenses as well. Difference maker for me is Keegan LaBelle. I mean, This is a guy on the offensive side for Marion. Zach Bundalo, their quarterback, wasn't quite able to get it done like he usually is. He went like 6 for 12, didn't have the best showing ever. But when you have a guy that runs for under 26 yards and a touchdown, like that's going to be the difference maker, especially against a Concordia squad that I still feel like is extremely underrated.
Yeah,
they got a win. It's crazy to think that this is an underrated squad, creeping in at the top 10. But truthfully, they get a big D2 win against Wayne State this year. A lot of returning guys, and they kind of had a down season last year, especially the year before after having very impressive run in the playoff. This is a Concordia team that people didn't really expect to be as good as they are, which I just don't get, because this is a very solid squad. And I think it's important when looking at this game that like these 2 teams should still, like, Concordia is a playoff team. Marion is obviously one of the best teams in the country. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys play again, whether it's any conference implication or the playoff. Like, these teams are both extremely legit.
Yeah, and we talked about that earlier with GV and Ferris, and how the AFCA poll, I believe, Witt had talked about the panelists from D2Football.com, and they dropped Ferris from like 1 to 9, and he just felt like that wasn't warranted because of the way that this Grand Valley State team was playing at home at GV and Lubbers Stadium, which is really a glorified FBS stadium if you've ever been in that, man, talking about that. But, sticking on this Concordia team a little bit, they've already picked up some quality wins on the season. You look at their opener against Taylor, then they go Olivet Nazarene, a really close, a tight game. You talked about the Wayne State game, Lawrence Tech. Still do have some big ones on the schedule this next week against Siena Heights. could potentially have, some interesting implications as far as the conference is concerned. At Madonna should be the equivalent of a
Yeah.
steam. Madonna seems like the doormat of that conference right now. But then you look at the last 2 weeks, though. You're at St. Francis and you're back home against Indiana Wesleyan.
Oh,
That's a
yeah.
gauntlet. That seems like a gauntlet right there.
That's a gauntlet. And in the mid states, every year you talk about this absolute gauntlet. You have to go through Olivet Nazarene. You have to go through Indiana Wesleyan, who beat an FCS team this year.
Yep.
For people that do not know, this Indiana Wesleyan team is the absolute cream of the crop. You throw in this Marion game, like it's just an absolute grinder. And for Concordia to look as good as they do after all this time and some of the games they've played and some they have coming up. And thankfully in the poll, they only dropped 2 spots. I think that's very appropriate. They're 12th this week. They're obviously 10th in the game they played last week. I'm glad that the official poll didn't hurt them too bad, because this is a team that should be on the outside looking in on the playoff spot.
100%. Let's talk about your guys over there at D-Dub.
Yeah.
And the scoreboard says one thing. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. 27-3 win for Morningside, the number 3 team in the country at Dakota Wesleyan. And, I had seen some people talking about how, there's no moral victories in sport. And sure, you can say that. But for this Morningside team, potentially not the worst showing actually defensively, at least for Dakota Wesleyan. 3 points. I mean, that's obviously ain't going to get it done. But defensively, to keep this team at 27, it's actually not a ridiculous outing for them.
Yeah, well, especially when you give the context that Morningside has not been held under 30 points in the regular season since 2016. Whew. Wow. I mean, holy cow. This is a Morningside squad that usually has, a Joe Dolanchek, who multiple time NAIA player of the year, was getting pro looks, 5th year guy from last year that graduated. And this year they've kind of hit a lull. They have 2 quarterbacks going right now. It's something very new for them. It's unfamiliar territory, and they're still very good. Morningside is a very talented squad. Obviously, they are able to grind out games against a surprising Dakota Wesleyan team who, bias aside, this is a team that people did not expect to win a lot of games, and they're already 5-2. It's extremely impressive what they've been able to put together this year. And it makes my heart happy as a guy who played on this team the years that they struggled a little bit. It's great to see them hang in there, but for Dakota Wesleyan, the real story of this game, 0 for 6 on 4th down, that is just not going to get it done. No. Not being able to convert the red zone is going to hurt you. I mean, if you even convert half of those 4th downs, this is probably a 2-1 score game, wholeheartedly. I think all things considered, the scoreboard isn't going to show everything in this game, like you mentioned. Very stout defensive showing from Dakota Wesleyan, held Morningside scoreless in the 4th quarter. Doesn't happen for them a lot. But Morningside is still Morningside. It's kind of what you have to say. This is a Morningside team who has won multiple national championships for the past couple decades. They have just been steamrolling people. And all things considered, I think Dakota Wesleyan's on the right path. They're climbing the rankings and they're climbing, their schedule very well. But it's still Morningside. They will pull guys from any corner of the Midwest, from the country, and those guys can ball. So I think all things considered for my guys, it's not ideal. You don't want to lose, but not a bad showing. Lose,
hey,
yeah,
it may as well be to these guys. I mean, talking about just kind of my, I guess, initial view looking at this box score too. We talked about that performance defensively. You're able to get 2 takeaways defensively. Mm-hmm. That's huge. That keeps that offense from Morningside off the field, the Mustangs. And then you look at time of possession for me. That is 3 points on 35, borderline 36 minutes of possession. And I think it does come down to, like you said, the red zone, right? Making those decisions. When are we choosing to go for this? When are we settling, I guess, quote unquote, in certain areas? When you have a time of possession, 36 to 24 minutes, basically, and it feels like you at times probably are controlling the pace of play. You're only outgained offensively, yardage wise, by 22 yards on the day. This, as one-sided as maybe the score looks, man, you really dig into it, and it is, like you said, I don't think it is a homer view. I think it is totally from a non-biased perspective. It's kind of ridiculous to see that score.
Yeah, and I think, too, there's a lot to build off of for Dakota Wesleyan. Obviously, you didn't play your best, and you're still able to hang in there for most of the game against one of the NAIA's finest. It's extremely impressive. And I think for the rest of the way for Dakota Wesleyan, obviously you still got to play Northwestern, who is absolutely on a roll. They're the best team in the country right now. But you also got to play a Dordt team who historically is team 3 in the GPAC, losing to Midland, who, look, I'm not a transitive property believer by any means, but Dakota Wesleyan beat Midland at home. I was there for homecoming. It was
Yep.
great to see. Dort lost to Midland in another close game. So again, I have not vouched for it, but I'm just saying like this Dort game seems much more in reach than it has in years past. And you win that game, you're putting yourself in the top three of
Yeah.
this conference, which Dakota Wesleyan hasn't sniffed since probably 2016, 2015. So extremely impressive stuff from them.
I hear you. And I feel like this next game, Briar Cliff, is a little bit of one that actually feels a little bit more interesting than I probably would expect. You look at some of their games this year, they've lost to some really quality competition, and actually picked up a win over Hastings, and a Hastings team that has been playing at a good clip. So, records aside, they sit at 2-5 right now, as opposed to quite the literal opposite from D-Dub. That one, I don't want to say like put a trap game on it or anything, because I'm sure they won't underestimate that kind of opponent, but they still do have two quality matches between them and Jamestown before they get into, man, those final two.
Yeah.
Woo!
I will say the GPAC is just a bloodbath every
Yeah.
year. Obviously, I have your top dogs in Northwestern and Morningside, but the field in this conference usually beats up on itself. Anybody can beat anybody. My head coach, when I was there, Ross Simple, who's still there doing a great job, said that. And I fully believe that. Like, these teams could beat anyone on any given day. Obviously, Hastings squad that beat Dakota Wesleyan in overtime earlier
Yep.
this year, a game that you'd really wish that you had back. Briarcliff's able to get it done, and Briarcliff, like, they're usually very sneaky. They usually recruit, excuse me, wow, very well out of the transfer portal. Um, and they do good stuff. They have athletes every year. This is not a game you could sleepwalk into. And Jamestown as well. They're building something special over there in North Dakota before they make the jump to D2. So yeah, can't sleepwalk through those.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Any to kind of finish here on the top 25, the new rankings that came out. Friends getting in there at 25, I'm sure is
Mm-hmm.
definitely a big one. We talked about them at length, but anything else that kind of jumps out at you as far as rankings wise?
Yeah. I think Baker and Louisiana Christian, people are not giving these teams enough credit.
Okay.
You're looking at a Louisiana Christian team who is in the Sooner Conference. Very underrated squad this year. In the media poll that I do with NAIA ball, we have them in our top 15. They are a extremely solid football program. They've been playing good football. They're about to run up on their gauntlet. They play Ottawa, Arizona this coming week, we'll talk about that in a little bit,
Yep.
who is a 24th ranked team right now. And Baker of Kansas put an absolute ass kicking on Mid-America Nazarene last week, who
Yep.
was a very red hot team. 40-7 win for Baker. With only one loss to their name. I really feel like they should fit in there in the top 25, but it's kind of hard to pick apart who you'd leave out. St. Thomas of Florida, obviously at 21 at 4-3, doesn't tell the whole tale. They've played two upper level opponents and also went on the road to play Texas Wesleyan, who's another top 25 out of conference team. Um, you gotta dig with some of these NAIA squads, because there are teams in there with 3 losses, and you're like, well, how does that make sense? A lot of these teams really want to play the best of the best, which I think bodes well for the NAIA, and I love to see it. I mean, we've seen FCS upsets multiple times this year from NAIA squads. We've seen a couple D2 upsets, and
Yep.
the level of competition is only getting better at this level, and I absolutely love to see it.
We saw a lot of that in D3 this year as well, and I think Whitewater and UMHB, teams like Hardin Simmons, like going
Yeah.
out of their way, like you said, to go out and schedule these ridiculous opponents. And a lot of times it works out. Endicott, with that late schedule of Hardin Simmons, that ends up being a statement win for the Gulls. And now you look at the rest of their conference, which is not a great strength of schedule. We talked about it earlier, but now that's a win that, gives you that bid into the playoffs, and it gives you probably a much better seed than you would have had originally. So again, I'm with you. Big fan of these non-traditional matchups, maybe, and these teams that know that they're the shit going out and scheduling other teams who are in the same boat. But we got some other top 25 stuff. Talk to me about these matchups that you wanted to highlight for this coming weekend.
Yeah. So the first one on the docket here is 6th ranked Carroll taking on College of Idaho, who's ranked number 9. For those of you that don't know about the Frontier Conference, if you're a fan of D1 football, imagine the self cannibalism of the Pac 12 and multiply it by 35, because the Frontier Conference every year, they just beat the ever loving crap out of each other. And these in-conference matchups are an absolute blast to watch, especially when they're both top 10. It's very hard to get a top 10 matchup because these teams just beat each other all the time. But Carroll obviously squeaking out a close win against Eastern Oregon, a very not good Eastern Oregon squad last week. Feeling a bit mortal, dare I say, right now. And College of Idaho has been one of the more impressive programs in recent years. Obviously, they're one of the newer programs in the NAIA, but they hit the ground running. They've been a perennial top 15 team for almost a decade now. They've been around for a while. They've certainly more than 5 years. So they're looking really good, and they're coming off a huge win against Montana State Northern. So I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah, man. You look at some of their quality wins, at least their strength of schedule as well. At home versus Rocky Mountain wasn't even close. And then again, at Arizona Christian, another squad that I think had a decent amount of hype surrounding them heading into the year as far as their history goes, 56-17. You're like, these contests are decided like very quickly and decisively for those guys. But how about Northwestern, Dordt? We've talked about them both a little bit, I guess, but now they get a chance to square off against one another.
Yeah, and you want to talk about one of the premier rivalries in the NAIA. These guys share the same Walmart. Like they are within driving distance.
That's the deciding factor, actually.
Yeah, that's the deciding factor. They share a Walmart. These guys hate each other. It's pure Iowan Midwestern football at its finest. And this is a Dordt squad that's looking for a staple win, especially after dropping a game to a Midland squad that has disappointed a little bit this year, if I'm being completely honest. Northwestern just looks absolutely unstoppable right now. They obviously have beaten FCS Drake in overtime earlier this year. They are beating everybody by any margin you can think of. Obviously, with Jalen Gramstad at the head there for Northwestern, who is probably the best dual threat quarterback in the entire country, just absolutely boat racing people. So this will be a good one. If you like rivalry games, if you like hatred in your football, this will be a good one to watch.
If you're a football person, that's the
football
game.
Guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But two more here on this little risk. Shoot me through. Give me the cliff notes on these two, man.
Yeah. First off, we got 13th Evangel taking on Friends, 25th ranked Friends at Friends.
Hell yeah.
Obviously that home field advantage is going to be huge for them, but this Evangel squad has kind of creeped their way up the rankings this year. Not that people expected them to be bad by any means, but I don't think people expected them to crawl all the way up to 13 like they have. They haven't lost a game yet. Evangel still kind of has to run the gauntlet a little bit in the KCAC, but they're getting it done. And again, this is a red hot Friends squad that's coming off of a staple win against a top 6 team, feeling like they could beat anybody right now. And like I said, triple option football, can't go wrong with that. So yeah, want to watch some good old boys go at it. This is another one for you.
That feels like you said, and you kind of alluded to it, two teams where the confidence is incredibly high right now. And now it's a matter of one of them is not going to be feeling that way in less than a week. And that's an interesting matchup because, like you said, two teams where the hype maybe wasn't there preseason, but now they've strung together some very respectable, at least first half of the year. But then finally, Louisiana Christian at OUAZ here, and talk to me about it.
Yeah, Louisiana Christian's another team that I feel like has crept their way into receiving votes or in the rankings. Very, very, very good squad. A lot of returning guys. They've been kind of building to this for a couple of years now. A team that's usually not in the conversation in the Sooner, but is extremely stout this year. Their defense is absolutely incredible against an Ottawa team who was also impressed a lot this year. They had a very good run last year, but they lost a lot of guys. People didn't really know what to make of this squad. Okay. Very high-powered offense usually. It's still the case. They replaced the guys they needed to replace. And this Ottawa team's absolutely rolling. So I am thrilled to watch this one. I think this one's kind of a sleeper for the playoffs because obviously after that it's Texas Wesleyan and kind of everybody else in the Sooner. So it's going to be a fun one.
Good man, dude.
Yeah,
that was fun. You rifled through that shit too. I appreciate
what can I say?
Man. That was a blast. I think you're gonna add a whole nother element to this show, and it's gonna make us better. So I can't say thank you enough, brother. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to getting you on here more and more often. All right.
Of course, man. Of course.
Sweet. Have a good night, dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah, take it easy, man.
See ya.